Today's video is sponsored by our good friends at Famous Faces and Funnies, located in Melbourne, Florida. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, our friends at Docking Bay 94, located in Boca Raton, Florida. Check us out on comicsandgames.com. Hello, welcome to another exciting episode of Codename New to Vero 2. I'm your presenter, Shibu RU, and we're going to do a comic recap of Cobra Kai, of all things. And going in, I bet you think, nothing new, but you'd be surprised. Now, this is based off the hit YouTube show Cobra Kai, that is basically a sequel to The Karate Kid. And remember, in this continuity, all three Karate Kids are part of this. And, we're up to season 3 going in, and it's been a hit. It's really, really good and really touches on all the nostalgia. Now, if you've been following the YouTube episodes, this really follows with that, but it does give a little bit more side stories that were mentioned either in the movie or in the show itself. And we start off with the scene of Johnny and his mom at the stepfather's house. We see how his, mother really is a loving mother and really sweet. And the husband, or Johnny's stepdad, is just like this gross old guy that married her just for her looks. And he treats Johnny like shit. And in the show, that's where the beauty of it is. You feel bad for Johnny, and he's the villain in Karate Kid. But again, it just shows that, you have to be in the other person's shoe to understand what it is, why they are the way they are. And, the first scene in the first season of Cobra Kai, where Johnny passed out drunk and how his life has turned out, it really pulls on your heartstrings, because you see Johnny, who was this strong bully, not so strong anymore. And again, this comic book pretty much follows that. It shows how, he was this kid riding his bicycle, kind of a loner and to himself. And then he stumbles upon the Cobra Kai dojo. And that's where a sense of purpose dawns on him. And we learn later on, we know that's a false, this was John Kreese's insane, personal demons, his PTSD, taking it out on these kids, and turning karate, which is for defense, into an offensive thing. So we go through the timelines, past different stages in Johnny's life into currently November 2018. Now he has the dojo. It skipped all the other stuff of him setting up that the show did. So he has his students, and he's talking about, winning all the All Valley tournaments, and how everyone needs to find something that will inspire them to levels of greatness. And in his case, it was Ali. Like I said, you're probably asking yourself, what more can this add between the movie and the TV show? Well, it does give a little bit, look at this here. It's the date that Ali went on, and it was kind of like a mention as a side note during, I guess, the movie and in the TV show. They went on a date and she threw popcorn at him. But I would think is really cool is if you see those quotes here, it's from Mr. T. He's like, hey, woman. That scene when Clubber Lang interrupts the Rocky statue unveil. So that's kind of pop culture within pop culture, and that's kind of funny. To me, I thought that was hilarious. But, again, these little side stories that were just mentioned during, the movie and in the TV show kind of give a little bit more time. Because, what else are they going to add? We know the story and everything. But, again, what kind of drew me to pick up this book is one variant of the cover is $25. I was like, wow, that's pretty remarkable for, a comic book on a TV show slash movie. And the illustration is pretty good. I mean, it's an average. We know the story. We know everything. There's no surprises in in this story, but it's just fun to have. Like, I have a Cobra Kai comic book, so I mean, I don't know if I'm going to get more, but just to have issue number one is kind of cool to have. And I didn't know that Johnny won the two, like, once when he was a sophomore, then one as a junior, the All Valley tournament, and then it was against Daniel in his senior year that he lost. The other thing I want to point out is in this era of reboots and relaunches, Cobra Kai is probably the only one that has not only met but exceeded, its original. And it is phenomenally good. And season 3 is on a cliffhanger if Ali's going to show up with Miguel hurting his neck. I mean, my wife and I enjoy this show so much, and we'll just binge watch it for the next 2 days. But it's one of those things that you just keep. I have to see what's next. I have to see what's next, and give the credit to the writers and the actors for selling it to us and being true to the original, but just adding enough of the modern, taste of it. And that's what I say about G.I. Joe comics. It has a foot in the past and also relevant to what's going on now. The other thing is the character Johnny Lawrence, and I hinted about it earlier. Like at the beginning of Karate Kid 2, you end up like feeling sorry for Johnny because Kreese beats the hell out of him. And, even though it's a little bit, he's a victim of abuse. And then, with Cobra Kai starting off with him drunk, and then, the guy has you see he has a good heart. He wants to do the right thing all the time, but it's just, things just backfire on him. And I know we all can relate to somewhat of what Johnny goes through. Very few people are born with bad intentions. But, Johnny's case is like, you hate him in number one, but in the beginning of number two, you're like, hey, wait a second. He's a victim. And then you really see it in the Cobra Kai. And I think now what's weird is Daniel LaRusso is kind of the jerk, and you're more on Johnny's side, which I find remarkable. What's good about this comic is it's entirely Johnny's perspective. There's no Daniel's perspective whatsoever. So it's like timestamps for a significant moment that led to, where we currently are with Johnny. And we're about to do the infamous, I forget that stupid cheesy song, but, they're on their dirt bikes and Johnny sees Daniel teaching Ali soccer or bouncing the ball on her leg and just goes ape shit. And what's funny is Daniel's perspective is I'm minding my own business. This is my personal business. And this kid keeps butting in, but when we're watching that scene as a kid, you're like, what a dick. Why is he being such an asshole to Daniel? And really, that's the beauty of this is you're seeing both sides of the coin with Cobra Kai and Karate Kid. And I guess this comic book is going to be expanding on that notion. I don't think it's going to be long. It's probably a 3 or 4 issue series and then boom. I mean, there's nothing more. And, I guess it's just to get ready for season 3. Here's a good question to ask all you guys. Besides Karate Kid and non-Star Wars, what do you think are the other iconic 80s or 90s franchises that are so embedded into pop culture? We got Karate Kid, Back to the Future, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I would have to say John Appleton, anything like 16 Candles, and Ferris Bueller is, I guess, included in that. So that's 1, 2, 3. I mean, write them down. What do you think are the other hallmarks in our pop culture mind? So The last thing, going back to this comic, is that, you kind of see how much in love Johnny is with Allie. When you're really in love, it brings out the best and the worst in you at times. I mean, the other person tends to do that. So you see, like, Johnny has his good moments and then he has his bad moments. And from the Karate Kid, we only see all the bad moments. But that's the one thing. This comic book, if you saw in those earlier clips where he's being a gentleman and, all that good stuff, there is good qualities to Johnny he's a redeemable character. And that's what makes him so intriguing. And I think, again, I want to say it for the third time, that's the most exciting part about this resurgence in the Karate Kid. And man, I just hope they start doing something with Daniel, because right now it's easy to not like him. Like, I find myself, my wife said it too, like, what the hell happened to Daniel LaRusso? He's such a, jerk. And it's just funny, like the script has flipped in this, in this scenario. Now, the other thing Cobra Kai has done well is these young kids, the new characters that are part of the mythos now. Daniel LaRusso's daughter and Johnny Lawrence's son and Miguel, and this love triangle that's going on. Yeah, it's kind of repeating, but it's different. And I think that's been done. They're not like, oh man, get these stupid kids out of the way. You're actually interested in that storyline as well. I know when Girl Meets World had the reboot on Disney Channel, and yes, sadly, I watched that too. It was like when the kids would come on, I'm like, get these kids off, because you just wanted to see Corey, Topanga, and Sean. And the kids that would pop up, they were just getting in the way and annoying. But in this case, like, you're actually invested in their story as well. And I think that's, again, really well done. The funny part is, you remember in the movie when Daniel does that sucker punch on Johnny, and he's like, we're even, right? Like, what did he think? Like, oh, yeah, oh, we're even. Let's just walk away and end the fight. Like, yeah, if you sucker punch somebody, you got to expect to get the shit kicked out of you or fight. And I guess he didn't really think that through. And the thing is, when you watch Karate Kid now, like, as you're older, like, you see that Daniel isn't completely innocent. He does a lot of, like, these, like, you remember when they're the skeletons and, he did the water thing on them. Like, he entices these guys, too, and that's where Johnny's perspective comes in, is like, when you're a kid and watching that, like, oh, poor Daniel LaRusso. But from Johnny's perspective, like, it's actually all valid. Like, Daniel instigated him. It was like edging him on. And like he said, he kept pushing. And, Johnny kept on saying, I did my best, but there comes a point where, enough is enough. So you see him and Allie get into a fight, and, he gets his guys and rides away. But this is an important part right here. Like, he's riding away sad, and as an adult, he's still sad. And we see that in Cobra Kai. Like, he has not overcome that particular summer or year, and it's affected him into adulthood. He needs to get psychiatric help. And at the same time with Cobra Kai, you see him trying to redeem himself, and to the people, because before he was no good to anybody and he was no good to himself. Well, now he's taking ownership of that, and you really pull for the guy. So that's why I think Cobra Kai is excellent. Now, I don't know if you should pick this book except for nostalgic reasons, but I just wanted to showcase so you don't have to do that. It's pretty cool, but it's definitely, you could pass on it and it won't affect you. Well, this is Shabu RU reviewing Cobra Kai.